Well, must be nice. But I'm very, very excited to have these two guys with us tonight. Running in CD3, obviously, Randy made the introduction. We have Kendall Qualls. Running in CD5, we have Lacy Johnson. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I think what we'll probably do is we'll have some structured discussion to kind of open it up, but I want to leave enough time for questions from you guys, because last time I was out here, you know, we had just gotten kind of over the 2018 election, and we were talking about the debrief and what happened. And I think this time around we're going to have some different results because we have some different people running. Fresh perspective, private sector experience, just some fresh ideas, and I'm really excited to have both of you gentlemen running. I did just come back from DC. I think I want to open it up with you, Lacy. Being out in DC, it's a whole different world. Why are you doing this? Why are you running, man? Why are you running? Just give us a little bit of background on yourself and why you decided to run for CD5.
Well, as he mentioned, my professional background is computer engineering. As he mentioned, also I live in North Minneapolis in the 5541 zip code. The hood, I mean, and I've been there for 40 years. Betty and I have raised two sons. One of them graduated from North High School and went on and got his master's degree from Brown University. The other one graduated from Patrick Henry. I played a little college football, got his AA degree, became a businessman and a musician. The reason I'm running is because I live in 55411. I see the pain and suffering and stuff every day. I see them continually voting for Democrats, and nothing ever changes. I've cracked the code of Democrats scamming us every election, and I've come to understand the mindset they created in us. This dependency, this non-profiting government program, this not holding us personally accountable. All this stuff become a mindset and become part of the culture. And so I'm sitting at home, I'm watching TV, I'm going into living rooms of college-educated friends of mine, and I'm listening to what they're talking about. And two things about it: it has nothing to do with the people I'm around every day. And then secondly, the solution that they're putting forth, I know would never work. And once again, as an engineer, data person, if something hasn't worked for 40 years, you know, it might be time for you to figure out it's not going to work. So I'm out here trying to make a difference in people's lives. And the first thing to do is get people to think about things differently. And so give them a different message. Perhaps they'll think about things differently, and once you start thinking about things differently, you do things differently. And so I'm running on a platform that's dealing with family, dealing with education, dealing with economics, and dealing with spirituality, and we'll talk some more about that, because I just care about people and their lives, and I know they can do it. I know they don't need handouts. I know that all they need is help and a point in the right direction, and they can do it themselves. And as I was talking to someone, my philosophy is, if I can do it, you can do it. And so that's what the message I want to bring to my community. And we're going to get this thing straightened out. It might not all happen in my lifetime, but I at least want to get the discussion started and leave behind some people who carry it on.
Yeah. So, Kendall, similar question. We have a current sitting representative now who represents CD3. CD3 had been electing Republicans for about 65 years before we had this most recent guy knock off our guy, Eric Paulson, and now the guy supports impeachment. All right, he supports impeaching the President of the United States. He openly supports that. Something to make note of, I think, for everybody in this room. Kendall, your background is very interesting as well. Randy outlined it a little bit. Could you cover where you've come from, where you are now, and why the hell you were running for Congress?
Yeah, so absolutely, thank you, and thank you guys for coming out and sharing this experience for the sake of our country, not just for us here. So let me give you a little quick background about myself and why I'm running. So a little bit about what Lacy shared. So my dad, career Army guy, okay, served in Vietnam, 25 years in the Army. Unfortunately, when we came back from Vietnam, thank you, my parents divorced. And we moved from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Airborne, to Harlem, New York City in the late 60s. And I was there in elementary school. I was there for 3 years. And I could tell you it was the worst thing ever. It was the epicenter of drugs, everything else that we see today in every major city. I saw that as a kid. And you know, I can't describe, I won't get into detail of how traumatizing that is for just families. And one thing I'll just tell you about this Men in Blue and what they're doing out there and helping, right? They always talk about the victims, they talk about the guys who are getting arrested and everything else. They're women with small kids, senior citizens, that are clapping behind their shades. They can't do it in public, but because they're the ones that are targeted as victims. I saw that up close and personal as a young kid. My mother couldn't handle all 5 of us, my older brothers and sisters, that were being absorbed into the street culture in Harlem. And my father came and got me and my younger brother. So if you guys ever saw the movie Officer and a Gentleman, you know, the guy with the dress, and literally that was my dad. So I never got into trouble. I was always home on time because literally that was it. But what I did experience growing up in a trailer park, as well as you know what, I know what people call me and all that kind of stuff. But guess what? In this country, your past does not have to determine your future. And you know what? I worked my butt off ever since I was 13 years old. And I paid for college working full time. I was in the Army Reserves. I won't go into all the detail, but after college, I went on active duty. I went to serve our country here in the United States and in South Korea. So I was an artillery officer right on the DMZ, right on the border between North and South Korea. There's no better case study than the value of freedom between looking at that peninsula, Korean peninsula. One ethnic group, one has freedom, one doesn't. And is guaranteed and protected by the United States. And that country is a juggernaut of an economy and everything else. So I saw that up close and personal. After I got out of the military, I worked with Johnson & Johnson in sales and marketing. I have responsibility for a $1 billion brand, hospital antibiotic. And I switched over to the med tech side of the industry, most recently with Medtronic, and that's how I came here. Minnesota should be proud to have a homegrown company like Medtronic and what it's spilled over in the jewel of the med tech industry that we have here. It's an envy of the rest of the country. So what got me involved in politics and why I'm running? You know what? Our country deserves better leaders. The leaders that I see in Washington, D.C., I tell you, are pale in comparison to the men and women that I serve with. And the other reason I'm running is because when I take a look at the narrative that the left and the media says about our country being a racist country, that you're intolerant. If you fly your flag, that means you don't like immigrants. Or like that. Look, the people that helped me along my way in my success in life, they were black and white, rich and poor, men and women. They were from different classes. And I'll tell you, any narrative that they put that way that our country, and I'll pull back on every single time. I'll tell you a quick story and I'll hand it over. There's no person more iconic in the civil rights era than Rosa Parks. This lady, at the end of her life, lived in Detroit. She got held up and beat up and mugged by someone who probably didn't even know who she was. And you know who got her a new apartment, a new place? She stayed in a safe environment. And no one knew about it until the guy passed away. It was the owner of the French of the Little Caesars Pizza chain. It wasn't Jesse Jackson. It wasn't Al Sharpton with his $1 million salary. It wasn't an NAACP. And I say that not to disparage those guys. I don't not to disparage them, but to also tell you what kind of country we have. And I'm going to keep making sure that they understand. I'm not going to let them get away with this narrative. Now listen, do we have bad actors? Absolutely. But they don't define our country. And they're trying to make that the definition of it, and I'm not going to let them get away with it.
Yeah. About maybe our messaging or the way that we connect with people, or especially in Minnesota, what do you think the thing is that we're missing? What is the critical thing?
If I can take that one first. You know, here's the thing, there's another reason I'm running. I think the Republican Party, I used to watch, we had small kids, and I couldn't run, I couldn't be active in politics, and I didn't feel the calling at the time when our kids were younger. But I would watch TV and I would look at this, and the reporter would ask a question, like immigration, or well, we can't do that because we can't afford it. It goes straight from an intellectual rationale, or intellectual reason, and they miss the part that people have hearts and emotions, and they make decisions emotionally. I've been in marketing and sales for 30 years, and it's not that we try to trick people emotionally, but we always remind them, what does the essence of value of this XYZ product have? Not just intellectually, but what does it mean to you, your family, your loved ones emotionally? Republican Party, this thing, I don't know if they're like robots. I don't know. Yeah, we're human beings, and I think we've missed that. And so in the 3rd district with Dean Phillips is a classic example. You know what? He told everyone he's going to be a moderate. He's going to run as a moderate. Yeah, he's going to do that. And what we're going to do emotionally, and intellectually, we're going to show the picture of Ilhan Omar, because I'm running against her too. We're going to show a picture of Ilhan Omar and all the votes that she voted for. And it's like, this is the 3rd district. They'll say, no, she doesn't represent the 3rd district. Oh, yeah, right. Then we bring up a picture and right next to hers and show all the votes where Dean has voted 95% along with Ilhan Omar. That's not moderate. Okay, look, fool me once, fool me twice, right? But then you know what, we're not going to let that twice happen, and we're going to hold him and we're going to remind voters that the moderate you thought you voted for is not moderate, and we're going to bring back the base of the Republican Party that stayed home, the 25,000 of them that stayed home in the midterms. We got a lot to talk about and fire them up about.
I think the 2 biggest challenges for the Republican Party in the inner city and metro area is just the media. You got to overcome the media. One thing you learn when you're out talking to people, and I told a few people that tonight, 99% of the stuff that come out of people's mouths is just regurgitate what they've heard on news and TV. And people aren't thinking for themselves. Now, you got to give people credit. They're living busy lives. But they don't realize how deceptive their news sources are. And so it's tough for the Republicans to get over that, because the media is saying we're racist and bigots and things like that, and they're giving Democrat credit for bad ideas. And once again, because, if it wasn't for the media, the Republicans would win in a landslide just about every time. Because, to be honest with you, and I'm not trying to put anybody down, I cannot think of hardly any one message or stance that Democrats have on any issue that makes sense to me.
Right.
It just appeals to emotions and stuff. So that's one thing. The other thing is messengers. If you got the right message, but you're gonna have to need people like me that out there with the message.
Yes.
And ideally we want to get to a country where race and stuff doesn't matter, but you got to meet people where they are.
Yes.
And right now, race matters to people in these inner cities.
Yeah.
And you send a white guy in there, and he just used the wrong word one time. He's lost all credibility. Now, even for a person like me, who I know just about all the characters out there, and I've been out of there, and I worked hard, and they know what I've done. I'll come out as a Republican with certain stands, they're gonna beat me up over the head. So I know how tough it's gonna be for the average person, but we need to identify, this is across the country, people like me in those neighborhoods, because a lot of them open to the Republican view. In fact, the black neighborhood is basically conservative. And the Republican Party need to understand that, I think, if they don't. And they also need to understand it's gonna take an investment. Right now, the way politics is set up, they wanna know who the candidate is, and then they're gonna decide whether or not they have a chance to win, to decide whether they can put resources in there. And as long as you're doing that, you're never gonna flip anything. You gotta put resources and investment and look toward the future in these communities. And I'm here to help. And look, the first time I ran for Minnesota's House of Representatives, I thought the Republican Party would at least give me a little help. I'm out there by myself, and I appreciate Jeff Johnson and people like that coming over and supporting it. But I'm running up to my campaign office with a staff of 8 or some volunteers, and I gotta pass by the Democratic headquarters with a parking lot full of like 30 cars and 40 people. I'm going handing out my literature, and they got 3 or 4 people handing out everybody's literature. So the Republican Party, you have a golden chance. And number one, the other last thing I'm gonna say, you gotta understand, there are people out there that are just open to the message. I mean, inner city people, I don't care what color they are, they know when people have not served them well. And the first thing I get them to do, and almost all of them willing to do it, is to agree party doesn't matter. And that's where you start at. Once you get them to agree, party doesn't matter. You get them to agree to see that these issues haven't been solved. Well, let's vote for the Democrat. Then we start working from there. But we got to have the right message and messenger, and we got to understand and appreciate how hard it is to get over the media. And one last thing, I just wish Republicans would fight harder.
Yes.
Yes.
And let me just give you one example, and maybe there's other reason for it. With this charade that's going on in the House of Representatives, for the life of me, I don't understand why the senators don't have their own hearing. And when the Democrats subpoena them one day to come in and tell their lies, to have the senator bring them in the next day, out in open, and answer some of the same questions. So those are the type of things I see the Republican needs to do within our community, and I have a lot of faith and confidence, but to be honest with you, some of the stuff that's been going on for the last 2 weeks, I'm like, wow. I knew we were bad and in a lot of trouble, but what I'm seeing now is just corrupt. And so we need to start fighting and standing up for us and get a little bit more backbone.
Yeah. We'll open it up to questions here in a little bit, but I heard two very kind of specific themes from you both about getting people that kind of look and are in the community like the people in that community. And I'm interested to hear from you both. A guy like me, or your average Republican activist who we can't change anything about, just like you guys can't. We can't change anything about our physical characteristics, but we believe in the same thing. I know both of you have children and are family and God-centered men, and I'm interested to hear about what we as Republicans, how we can overcome the things that we can't control right now to help you guys get across the finish line in 2020. What can we do? What can we be thinking about? How can we change the way that we talk about issues?
Yeah. I want to comment on people that look like it, and so I'm not disagreeing with one thing whatsoever. But one of the things that we don't want to become is just like them. Right. We don't want to play identity politics. You know what? This message of freedom resonates no matter who you are, where you live. And you know what? I registered when I was 18 years old. I went and told my girlfriend in high school, hey, I registered as a Republican. She said, you did what? And she's here today, she can tell you. And so, guys, I'm going to tell you, you know what? We don't want to be a better them. We want to be a better Republican Party, because we stand for America, and we stand for the traditions of this country. So I go, okay. Yeah. So what can we do differently? You know what? It is we need to reclaim our young people. Man, have they been indoctrinated? Yes. So that's one. And also the other one is when it comes to these elections, we need to make sure that people understand we need to get active. For the left, it is like a religion to them. Yeah. Man, it is like a religion. And we, okay, we'll just show up to vote. You need to show up, and you need to bring 5 other people with you. We need to make sure we get the turnout, because like-minded people are there. It's amazing that we just don't get enough of the turnout. So that turnout's going to be huge.
A couple of things. I think we need to make a positive, visible, measurable difference in people's lives. The people that I represent, they've heard promises and ideas and drawing boards and stuff all along. And so what I'm trying to do, and this is what I think the Republican can do, I'm trying to create a technology center in North Minneapolis. I've identified a few technology companies, and the great thing about it, I can tell this story. When I go out and look for investors, just about all of them are white, male, rich Republicans who support Trump. The very demographic that they're teaching people to hate. So when we can bring to the table and have concrete things where we got jobs and things in this neighborhood, and oh, by the way, it's consistent with the Republican principle, and oh, by the way, it was the Republican who invested in this company. That's the type of message I want to take to the community. Yeah. And we're in the process of taking that. So once we do that, because otherwise, and I'm saying the community I'm from, they've heard it all. And so that's what we need to do, basically, I think, and show a difference.
Yeah. How excited are you guys about these candidates? Ridiculous, right? That's incredible. So both of you, in 2020, you will have a R next to your name on the ballot. Another guy who will also have an R next to his name on the ballot, who didn't do as well as we would have liked to see in CD3, and certainly in CD5 did not do as well as we would have liked to see, is Donald Trump. I'm interested to ask you guys about what the dynamic is there. You know, having Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, having him investing in the state of Minnesota. How do you kind of play off of his dynamic, understanding that you both are different than Donald Trump, and he's done certainly some great things for the state of Minnesota, but understanding that he actually, in some cases, offends the sensibilities of people we need to win back in CD3 and in CD5. How do you, as congressional candidates, with him at the top of the ticket, navigate the world of Donald Trump in 2020? Good luck, I'm out of here.
Well, you know, being from the community, you know that there are certain environments where you can't lead with that. You got to lead with, here's the issues, here are the solutions, and things like that. If it comes up, you let them know that you do support them. But in other environments, you'd be surprised. I'll tell this story. I got a friend who actually worked for Keith Ellison, very close to Keith Ellison, and she was helping me too because she know me. And we're sitting around the office one night talking about it. Trump came up, and I'm like, this is probably a person I gotta ease Trump up to her. But you know what? Before I said anything, she said, you know what? I like Donald Trump. I think there's a lot of pent-up support among blacks for Donald Trump. In fact, I'm predicting he's going to get a higher percentage of black votes than any Republican candidate within my lifetime.
I'll tell you, I agree.
I agree. And once again, the media's not showing, but it's going to bite them again. They're going to be crying after the day after the election because they lost, and they're going to have to understand how they lost, and oh my, oh me. In fact, I'm telling my friends, put the guns away from them, don't put in arsenic around them, close all windows that's above the 3rd floor, if you care about these people, because the day after the election, you're going to have to watch out for them. But once again, I've been pretty out there as far as my support for Trump and counteracting some of the other information out there. Now, once again, all politics is local. And people really want to know how you're going to help them in their lives, and you got to convince them about that. And so that's what I focus on. There are environments where it doesn't matter, and as a person who's familiar with my community and stuff, I have to understand that, and there's a place to do it. And then there's certain places where you have to lead with issues and things and results, and get people to like you first, and then you can go places with them. But the other thing about it, and I'll say one more thing, most of the people know me, and believe it or not, I don't know whether I deserve it, they think I'm a pretty smart guy. So some of them like, I don't know why you're doing it, Lacy, but I'm going to support you anyway because I know who you are. And so I bring those along too. So.
So Donald Trump, this one's easy for me, guys. You know what? I just believe in authenticity, number one. So my answer and how I plan to address it in 3rd District is this. It's very simple. I voted for Donald Trump. I'm going to vote for him again. Here's the issue. My style of communication and my style of leadership is very different. Yeah. And we plan on positioning our campaign around that. My profile is very consistent, more consistent with the profile of the 3rd District than Dean Phillips. Okay, I've worked for Medtronic, worked for corporate organizations. I know the issues that they face. You know, and I can speak to it handedly. Each year, especially for major corporations, at the end of the year, a lot of us have gotten a 3-5% merit increase. You never see it because your health insurance has gone up 5%. You go like, and that's been happening now for the last 10 years. Going, man, I'm glad I got this raise, but man, you know, you never see this. It's like, where's the raise? So it's part of the healthcare is going to be one of those, but we've really positioned ourselves. If you haven't seen our announcement video, I'll ask you to check it out, and not just to see it, to like it, but to see it because we have positioned it for the suburban woman voter. Okay, and so you'll see family, you'll see our focus on that, and you see how this country, how we've prospered, and the classic American dream. We can only do that here. So to answer your question, it is really focused on those issues that resonate around the American story, that resonates around what can we do to help my family prosper, and we're going to focus around what the issues around healthcare. Now again, this goes back to Dean promising to be a moderate. Basically, he is a proxy for the left, and if they want to do something radical on healthcare, he hasn't shown any change that he'll do something different from the rest of the group. So that's really how we're going to position ourselves and focus on the issues, and not necessarily, you know, the personality of Donald Trump.
Yeah, very good. All right, so we have 2 men who are running for Congress in the Lions Den. What I think I'd like to do now is kind of get questions from you guys, and an expectation that I would like to set is that these are questions for these guys and not necessarily grandstanding or statements or that kind of thing. So more or less, if anyone has any questions, just simply raise your hand. I'll come to you with the microphone, and then we'll let you guys take them in kind of the order that they're at. So if anyone has any questions, let's start over here, okay?
Thank you both for coming. I'd like my question really fast. So I believe the liberal agenda is the most dangerous thing on this planet right now. How do you intend on educating young black men and actually in general everyone of self-responsibility and forget these myths of white privilege and racism, and how do you plan on doing that?
Who's taking that one first?
I can take that first. First of all, by just sitting down, connecting, and talking with them. I understand them. And I'll just tell one story, and I got a whole bunch of them like this. As far as connecting and changing their outlook. I'm walking down Broadway. I hear a gentleman putting gas in his car. I say to these 2 young ladies walking behind me, and stop peeking and start speaking. I'm like, who come up with a line like that? I turn around, and there's this young man who's talking about what a player he is. He's driving his Mercedes with his spoke rims and everything, how much money he makes. And I'm going to make this short. When he finished, the first thing I said to him, I said, yeah, but you know what? This craziness out in these streets is not going to stop until we black men start marrying the mother of our children, respecting them, and loving them. And here's the thing. I run into him every once in a while in the neighborhood, and we stop and talk, and I leave him with the same message. Fast forward about 2 years of walking through a strip mall, and I hear somebody saying, Stacy, Stacy, Stacy. And I'm like, I think he's talking to me. And so I turn around, and it's this gentleman. He no longer has a Jerry curl, he just got a haircut. Well, first thing he said to me, I want you to come and meet my wife and my son. Aww. And he's driving a Mercury Mountaineer now. And he takes me to meet his wife and his son. He said, I joined church over on 30-something in Chicago. And the last thing he said to me is, you thought I wasn't listening to you, but I was. Yeah. And here's the thing, and I told you before, one of the reasons I'm in the race, I'm thinking, they're not hearing the right thing coming from people. Yeah. And I got a lot of stories like that. So once again, when you connect with people and you're genuine, and you understand where they're coming from, and they respect you, they will listen to you, and you show them a different way of doing things, because most of them, it's hard to be happy and content in life with what they're dealing with. And they're looking for a new way of looking at things, a new way of looking at life, and a new answer. And that's the way I connect with them and change their mind. And I got a lot of stories like that.
So, you know, I appreciate the question. You know, in my district, it's there's only 8% African American. So that question probably won't come up for me as much, being this suburban district. However, if I get pressed by the media, I'll ask you. You sure you want to ask that question? You know, you talk about the liberal agenda, right? You sure you want to ask why am I on this side of the ticket? And I said, well, okay, well here you go. I spent 30 years in healthcare. I got all the data from CDC attached. I still have family that live in Harlem and the Bronx. So I'll tell this with data and heart. Okay. In these black communities in these cities, we didn't used to live like this. The Democrats were warned about what's happening right now, 50 years ago, from Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Okay? He wrote the report, Crisis of the Negro Family. Black families, 25% single parent. 75% two-parent family. Fast forward 50 years. Fast forward 50 years. Now you see everything that's going on. He warned, and you know what? They called him a race. He didn't know what he's talking about. The black leaders in these communities have profited it from your expense. And so my target is not going to be the young black men. My target message will be to the grandmothers and the mothers who saw what this used to look like. We don't have a problem in this country about black and white disparity. We have a disparity between two-parent families and one parent. And here's what I tell you, and the data shows this. You want to reduce child poverty in the black community? Two-parent families, childhood poverty is 8%. Two-parent black families, their kids graduate high school at the same levels as the general population. Two-parent black families, their kids have run into law enforcement, low percentages, and they know it. Because these are Bureau of Vital Statistics, this is the CDC. And here's what I want to tell those mothers and those grandmothers. They were warned you 50 years ago, okay? They used you to get 90% of your vote. So here's what I want you to do. Here's your call to action. In the next election, I want you to vote Republican from the top of the ticket to the dog catcher. Not because Republicans are going to change your life. That's between you and God and your God-given talents. I want you to vote Republican to send a message to the Democrats. We know what you did, we know why you did it, and it stops right here with me.
Yeah. Cooking with hot fire. We got another question right here.
This question is for Lacy. As was proven by the applause in this room, a lot of people look at your opponents and are just frankly very embarrassed that our state elected someone like that. And comments were made about the infidelity. It seems like you mentioned, Lacy, the black community is essentially conservative. That's what you said. And certainly my experience with meeting Somalis and Muslims is that they take their faith very seriously. Why does it seem like there's this disconnect between who they're voting for and her personal conduct? And then the second thing is the media. It seems like no blows stick with her. The Star Tribune, they've got a big picture of her hanging in their press room. How do we respond when the media won't even investigate her and won't actually report on some of the facts that are very disturbing about her?
She gets away with what she does. You're right, because a lot of time the media is protecting her, and she knows that. And just like you, I've been in conversation with people in the Somali community, and you're correct. She's not a good representative of the Somali community. She's an embarrassment to the state. She's anti-American security, anti-American sovereignty, and all those type of things. But she holds on because they protect her. But here's the thing, it's my job to smoke her out. And the other good thing about it too, and one of the reasons, she's gonna have a tougher time accusing me of being a racist. You know what I mean? So when you get rid of, in fact, if you think about it, that's the Democrats' main platform for black folks.
Right.
So I'm gonna unmask that platform. She's gonna have that platform to run on. So now she's stuck with addressing issues.
Right.
And once we get them addressing issues and listening to their solutions, they can't win. And I tell everybody, maybe I'm overconfident. When I was getting ready preparing for to debate my Democratic opponent in the last election, I watch football games because I don't have to prepare for them. I know the spots that they have, and I know what they're going to say. So once again, now that we've stripped off her main agenda item for black people, the main platform, the racism, she's going to have to answer to the issues and things, and I think that's when she's going to be exposed. And also, there's a lot of things in her personal life, as you pointed out, that's just hypocritical and not genuine. And I've had people in the Somalia community to come to me and say that. And we're prepared to go to battle with her on the Somalia battleground and take some of those votes away from her.
All right. Let's take some more questions. Right here.
This is for Lacy and Kendall.
And we all know that there are going to be very specific issues that each of you have to address. And one of them is going to be conceal and carry, the NRA, and can you speak to that from your communities?
Sure. I think, so I've been to 3 high schools in the 3rd district, and that question's come up. And so number one thing, again, connecting here, right? Number one, sure, you're not necessarily asking about the gun issue, you're asking about the safety of all of us, right, in the public square.
Absolutely.
I'm in the public square with my family, with my wife and kids. I want the same thing. You know, my kids are in public schools. I don't want any harm coming to them. So I think we agree that we want the same thing. The question is, how do we do it? What is the most productive aspect that could happen, right? So there's some security things that we can do around that in our critical points, just like we do in the major stadium, right? So those are some solutions to take a look at. But a lot of those solutions come there. The other one is that from a gun law standpoint, it's that one's could, from my perspective, pretty easy. So if we know people that should not have guns, have them, let's make those a federal offense.
Yeah.
Okay? However, when it comes to gun laws and NRA and that type of thing, you know what? That issue has nothing to do with how do we protect our people, how do we protect our loved ones. What I try to focus on is when we think about the Second Amendment, the people that have them lawfully are typically the ones that that use them to defend their families or for sporting. And I'll give this one story. This happened just last week. Okay, this family in Florida, masked men, literally. I mean, all this is public domain, in the public domain. Masked men come into the home. They pistol whip the husband, basically knock his socket out of his eye. All right, with a gun. They came in armed. The wife hears the noise. I don't know if you guys read this. The wife hears the noise. She comes in. She's 8 months pregnant. She runs back. She gets the AR-15 they have, and she shoots the guy. Now, you tell me what would have happened to that family if they weren't armed to defend themselves. So, if the point I want to get to, especially in 3rd District, we agree on the safety piece. And I want to work with elected officials, with community volunteers. How do we make our environment safer? But taking away the weapons, making it harder for citizens to get, has never shown that to work. So I'm all about solutions. I've been in the private sector, and everything has been about results and solutions, not gimmicks.
In today's society, there's a tendency, especially for liberals, to look somewhere else for the solution. And even when we look at this incident of violence in the schools and things like that, 9 times out of 10, they see these troubled students. They see them troubled. So instead of just automatically pointing at the NRA and gun control, have you ever thought about forming a group within the school, an outreach group, let's say, that contain all the popular students and all the popular athletes and all the popular teachers? And when you see a student that's obviously under some type of mental stress, reach out to that student. I think that would stop a lot of it if you just did that. So once again, look in the mirror. And I'm gonna tie together a few things. The family issues that Kendall has talked about. Look, I told this story the other night. I grew up in a gun culture. There was 3 guns in everybody's house. There was a pistol, a rifle, and grandma had a shotgun. And here's the thing. None of us, it has never crossed any of our minds to shoot somebody because of the way we were raised. And I tell people, look, you got all kinds of experts trying to come up with solutions to gun violence and stuff. Don't you kid yourself. There's a lot of these kids under a lot of pressure and stress and strain. They get it from a certain culture. They're young teenage boys with adrenaline running. Guns are ready to handy. And you can outlaw them all you want. You're going to have the same kind of result when you outlaw drugs. It's not going to work. So here's the thing. The long-term solution ultimately is to put the family back together and have the dads and moms and dads in there telling these kids, no, you ain't gonna be out there causing no trouble in the streets and things like that. So that's the long-term solution. In the meantime, we need to look at some things that we can do as far as making sure that guns don't get in the hands of the wrong people. But that's a tough battle to fight. Ultimately, we're gonna have to put the family back together and start raising these children so they know just because a gun is out there, you aren't gonna use it to kill somebody else. And my dad had all kinds of guns in our house because of the way we were raised. We would never consider that. So that's what I want you to know. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and we should keep it that way.
For a Packers fan, Max, you're doing a great job moderating. I'm glad that you both said that you're going to take the fight to your opponents. I think as conservatives, we're just too damn polite. We're called racist, sexist, homophobes, and we call them liberal. Specifically, I would like to know, what issue are you going to make your opponents sweat on? You've got Dean Phillips, who broke his #1 campaign promise with his first vote by voting for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. You've got an American-hating socialist in your district. I want to know, how are you going to sweat them out and get them on defense? Because the Democrats are always on offense, attacking us. So what are you going to do to draw your opponents out? Woo!
Good question.
Here we go.
Well, you know what? I think I'm doing it right now, to be honest with you, because they're using my campaign ads as fundraisers, to their face. So I know I'm doing something right there. But here's the thing. To your point, he ran as a moderate. We're gonna hold him to his guns on this. He ran as a moderate. First vote, he voted for Nancy Pelosi, and he never came back to explain why he did it. I mean, that's poor leadership there. The second one is that, again, his voting record is more aligned with Ilhan Omar. So we're going to tie them two together. And for those of you, we have several other candidates that's going to do the same thing. You know what? You want to be on that side of the party? We're going to make you eat it. The other one is that I always tease him, like, he has this little young look, and he's got a new, never mind, we'll talk about his new. But he comes across with his little skinny jeans and is like, hey, I'm happy, I'm the young guy. Guess what? We're going to make him own this fact of you constantly come back as a moderate, you vote obviously with the party. I've lost my train of thought for a second because it was trying to make a joke. But and I promised I didn't have a glass of wine either. But one of the things is that he is constantly has talked about he wanted to have a conversation. And again, he never speaks out on especially the issues around Israel. And how Ilhan is, and that whole group that's wanting, and again, this has nothing to do with his heritage, is that they're our most trusted ally in the Middle East, and there's nothing public that he says about it. So he's going to get a lot of heat on that. We're going to make sure that we hold him accountable on that, and we're going to be out there different. So this is not to disparage the previous representative, Eric Paulson, is that I'm highly engaged. Connecting with the base, and we'll be connecting with voters, and this is not going to be a cakewalk for him. He is going to feel the heat. So not just with presence, but also with communication.
Well, I know in this age of social media, you got to be very careful what you say. Everybody put their cameras away and no videos here. But as a politician, you got to be diplomatic, but sometimes you got to just get out of that mode. And with Ilhan, what it boils down to, I'm going to hold her accountable. She just says so many silly things. She got so many silly ideas. And we're going to point that out. I mean, to call for the boycott of Israel, to basically declare economic war on Israel, our most trusted ally in the Middle East, our historical ally in the Middle East, and then turn around and get upset and not understand why someone that she's created as an enemy won't let them into the country. did have a suggestion for her though, because since she believes in these open borders and all that kind of, I said, try to sneak into Israel and see what happens to you. Hire a smuggler and try to sneak into Israel. If you really believe in open border, prove it to me and take action. So just the things that she says, this whole thing where she doesn't even have, well, I have to be careful here, to vote against a resolution on genocide. Those are the type of things, like what you gonna do? And by the way, I can write a book on this lady and anything. She's never hollered in the community. She's more concerned about being a national celebrity than solving the problem. She's more concerned about her own personal goals than solving the problem. While the problem exists, she's running off to Africa and everywhere else and down, talking about down in South America and everywhere else, where in the meantime, there's suffering going on in her neighborhood, and there's issues and things for her to solve. So we're gonna point out the things she say, the things she do, how silly it is, the fact that she's out for herself and she's not out for our district, and we're gonna go on and on. And by the way, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And we got a lot more to say about it. But bottom line, she's bad news for our district, she's bad news for the state, she's bad news for our country, and we want to send that bad news package. Okay?
Yeah. We got a question from Sarah over here.
I believe that education is the biggest change maker for the future, and so I'm just wondering how, I mean, I know education in CD3 is a big deal, and we have a lot of great school districts, but I know in CD3, CD5, that's a tough issue. Kids are not in the best schools, and the gap is only growing on a regular basis. But how do we change the mindset? How can you guys help to change the mindset of, we need to tell all kids that they can achieve and not continue to play that the achievement gap is because of racism or institutional whatever. So I'm just wondering how you guys can help with that issue, because we are losing the education system to the left.
How do we get it back, guys?
Yeah, let me take this back. So I'll share this. I'm a huge proponent of education, so I'll share this, again, not boasting. It wasn't until I got my third master's degree that I found out in this country that I already had a PhD. I was poor, hungry, determined. In this country, if you have that fire in the belly, there's a pathway to success in this country through formal education, but also through the trades. We have tons of unopened jobs that are big 5-figure salaries. That if you haven't read any of the things on the American for the Center of American Experiment, great job that they do there on the trade job, and it's not something to look down on. Often these young men and young ladies, they go off and they start their own businesses, and their houses on the lake are bigger than the guys that's working in the cubicle, at United Healthcare. So it's yes, education, but all education, right? That's number one. So for me personally, I'll explain. Number one is education was so important for me that I worked full time to get my college grant. And you know what? If you show value in this country, all 3 of my master's degree were paid by my employer, not by me, including and huge significant cost. But you know what? When people see a glimmer of light in you, they're willing to invest in you from that respect.
Well, a couple things, and I run off quick. I started up a charter school. And I had a chance to travel across the country. I traveled to KIPP Academy in Queens. And I was on a panel at the Hoover. I was on the panel in attendance at the Hoover Institute on Education. Anybody know Dr. Howard Fuller, Education Choice, the ex-superintendent in Milwaukee? The Bill Gates Foundation gave him $20 million. Sit down and had dinner one-on-one with him. Bottom line is that we're in trouble because the school system infrastructure and standard the way it's set up is not designed to solve the problems that I'm seeing in the inner city. Before we start talking about changing the children's perspective, you got to change the parents' perspective. So if the parents are sitting there listening that you can't do it, and racism, and America racism, and we need lower standards and things like that, they're gonna let the school system get away with it. Now, when I was a recruiting student for my school, and a lot of people told me I don't want them kind of kids. I said, them exactly the kind of kids I want. They told me to drive down my scores, and I was going in some of these houses in North Minneapolis and USC, I ain't get into it. But one thing I know, and one thing I always started out with, I don't care what situation a parent is in, they always want a better life for their children. Yeah. And I always would start there. I would not be judgmental, but once again, I know what a great public school is like, because despite of this stereotype out there, I had a great public school in Mississippi, K through 12. And I saw what features in that school made a difference. And by the way, a lot of those features has nothing to do with the latest study on class size. It has nothing to do with the latest study on discipline. It has nothing to do with what's in textbooks. It has to do with what's in the teacher's heart and their attitude towards those students. And I tell everybody, I look at something, and by the way, I also sit on charter school advisory for Pillsbury. I also sit on the site council at North High School. I sit on the STEM Academy board at North High School. So, and I've been in these schools doing absenteeism intervention and everything else. So I'm very familiar with the Minneapolis public school system and how they work. I've sat in meetings with the Secretary of Education, Assistant Secretary of Education, and I hear the kind of, oh boy, I gotta watch. I hear the kind of nonsense that they're talking and planting in our children's heads about lower standards and talking to our children about all the obstacles they're up against. When I talk to our children, I don't talk about any of that. I talk to them about what you need to do. And if anybody, just give me a minute to tell this one little story too. I had a good friend of mine. He came home when he was in high school, told his mom that the teacher would give the black student different tests than they would give the white student. And he told his mom that the test that the teacher gave the white student was stuff they covered in class. And the stuff that they gave the black student was stuff they didn't cover in class. But here's the thing, here's the beauty of it, and this is where I'm going. He said his mom listened to him and asked, well, are the answers for your test in the book? He said, yes. She said, I don't want to hear the rest of that. And that's the way my wife and I have raised our children. Don't come to me and telling me about no racism is the problem, and the teacher, no, we don't want to hear that. So once again, you got to talk about the attitude of the children, the attitude of the structure of the school, and one of the things I tell people I look for, and I try to sum it up, every adult, and when we started the charter school, this is one of the features, what? Every adult in that school look at every child as if that's their own child. Yes. And you can't be afraid of them. And by the way, there's some other things we need to do that we'll get into, but that's on a high level, the type of approach we need to charter school. And I know, based on the experience of these children that was in our charter schools and the results on their tests, where they were in the 85% nationally, percentile nationally, I know they can do it, and I never let them use the excuse, and I stay on them, and they're gonna do it. So all this liberal stuff about how bad life is, I don't wanna hear it. Yeah. You go out there and you can achieve. Yeah.
Just one thing around this too. What we have to do as a Republican Party is more on a strategic level, because right now, even for those kids that, hey, yes, I want the education, we have a lot of people with degrees, but with little knowledge in education. And there's no better example when you look at AOC. And I mean this seriously. I mean, she has an economics degree from Boston University, I believe. Great institution, but you would never know it by listening to her. And she's an example of a lot of young people. They got the degree, but the knowledge and education is lacking, and there's a gap there that we need to address.
And they paid a lot of money for that degree.
Over here. Barb has a question.
We obviously love the messages that you're delivering here tonight, and we're certainly supportive of each of you. You're running in big districts. How do you plan to get your message out there, be it social media? Because let's be honest, you have wonderful messages. The media is not going to help you get that message out there. So, I mean, we can help you, but what is your plan in terms of getting your message out to reach the largest amount of people?
Kendall, we'll start with you.
Sure. So thank you very much for that. You know what? Luckily for us, and this is probably the best time for anyone to run. I'll say another way. Best time for anyone to get their message out outside of the mainstream media. The market has become so fractured now. I mean, there's probably no better example around is in our own president, how he has basically done an end around, right, using Twitter. Those are the things that we're going to be looking at, different platforms that gets to the main our main audience. Again, you know, what we're focusing on is not just the base, but those, you know, basically the moderate middle suburban moms that make the decision in the 3rd district. The market, the communication market is very fragmented. We're going to be looking at that. Yes, we're going to do the standby. We're going to do the blocking and tackling, but also we're going to be looking at those outlets that where people like streaming. Now, like our kids, my son, he graduated St. Olaf, got married, you know, this year, and they go say, I'm streaming. So they have no connectivity, no cable, no nothing. They stream. And so there's ways that you can advertise, you can get messages to those people that are, you know, what we call it, unplugged. So we're going to be doing a lot of that as well.
Well, first of all, I have over 100,000 people have viewed my video. I got over 70,000, so we're getting close to 100,000 Twitter followers. And that's due to the talent of the people that's helping me. I've raised so far close to over $300,000. We're gonna set a goal of $1 million to $2 million. We're gonna set a goal of $1 million to $2 million for a budget to get our message out, and we've been getting it out very well. And I've gotten PACs and things, super PACs that's looking to support what I'm doing. And the bottom line is that if you face it, really I'm running an international race, given Omar and all the people that she's upsetting, I'll put it that way. All the people that she's upsetting, and even though I can't take foreign dollars, I got people all over the country contributing to our campaign, and the more we rev it up, the more I expect to raise. I'm getting calls from billionaire CEOs, representatives, they want to donate, movie producers. I mean, so that it's going to be out there. If I do what I'm supposed to do, when I do what I'm supposed to do, you know, if I do what I'm supposed to do, we're going to raise the money, we're going to get our message out, and I got some very, I mean, it's amazing how smart guys I got on my team, man. I got a lot of connections, and we're going to use that and leverage that. And we're gonna hit some of the power brokers, and we got some inside information on the Democrat side, because believe it or not, there's a lot of Democrats don't like Omar either. And they may not come out publicly and support me, but some of them behind the scenes will be supporting me. And I see some gentlemen here from Somalia. I got East Africa to support me, and we just get, this thing is all coming together, in other words. It's kind of like, for those of you should know the old windows when the splash thing came up, the window came up red, blue, and green, and at first it was kind of fuzzy, and then it got more clear and crisp. That's where we're coming right now, so we're almost there. And so the bottom line, with the money and the social media present, and the talent and everything we have, and groundwork and things, and strategies we have, we're gonna get the message out.
Wow. Go over here to Bill Holm.
The Democratic Party, but you're also taking on the entire liberal left establishment. Numerous groups are supporting candidates on the left, the ACLU and other groups like that. Do you have a strategy for flushing them out and holding them accountable for what they're doing behind the scenes?
Who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one as well. So here's the thing, and again, this is part of the whole thing of holding Dean accountable, and you know, Dean is projecting tolerance. You know, we should be tolerant of each other. That was the leftist thing. We should be tolerant. Well, guess what? They're the most least tolerant group ever, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm going to say, look, do you believe in that we should be tolerant? Absolutely. Then when are you going to have, or I'll say courage, when are you going to have the courage to tell your people to stand down? This is coming from your side of the aisle. Are you willing to do that? And then we're going to make them, and if he does, that's great. Then we're going to show, look, it takes leadership to make that happen. It takes me to do that. If he doesn't, Because he doesn't have the courage to be able to do that here, and he's not going to be able to have the courage to represent you in Washington, D.C.
Well, this is part of holding them accountable, get the message out and dealing with them. You got two black men sitting here representing the Republican Party in 2 congressional races, and they just can't write us off. Sooner or later, they're gonna have to pay attention to that and give us some publicity there. But once again, too, we got connections in some of the media here that we're gonna be leveraging. We have very strong support from some of the CEOs and power broker within Minneapolis and in the Twin Cities that's on our side, that's already reached out to us and we're working with. So we're gonna leverage some of their power and talent and money to make people pay attention to us. We got some back channels to some of, and I'm not gonna mention any specific name, but we got back channels to some of the more major news media in the Twin Cities. And we're gonna leverage that and get some pub that way. And then just as importantly, once we start showing the support and the diversity of support of the people that's behind our campaign, I think that's gonna gather some attention and we're gonna get a chance to speak. And we always got social media to get stuff out.
One thing I want to point out, so again, I think a lot of the questions that were asked are great, but those are all reactionary things. What are we going to do if, here's the proactive thing that we're talking about. Republican Party, I think if anything, we need to break out and we need to just come out of the closet and just be bold about it. So we got so many people that are scared to tell them they're Republican. Here's the scenario I want to give you. I'm going to get factual stuff, so I have to do both head and heart. This election cycle, we probably have more African American, more black candidates running on the Republican ticket in Congress and Senate, more minority, Hispanic as well, than we probably ever had in the history of this country. No one knows it. But we know what, we're going to get that information out. I actually have an interview next week from a reporter from Reuters to talk about this very subject. Again, we're going to take the initiative and to start pushing this narrative that's out there is going to be wrong. If we get only half of us elected that's running, it'll be the highest number of African Americans in Congress representing the Republican ticket, and no one knows about it, and we're going to change that narrative.
And that's why it's important that we re-elect Donald Trump, because that's going to send a message too, and let the media know you're not as bad as you think you are. That we got you, okay?
So I'm going to give the last word to these guys for the final couple minutes that we have, but my personal pitch to everybody in this room is let's hitch our horses to these wagons, right? Now we paid you've heard just inspiring messages, different messages than we're used to hearing. You paid for your ticket tonight, let's keep their saddles full. You can go online, give at their website, cut these guys a check, cut these guys a second check. They are going to need everything that they can possibly muster to accomplish the task that's before them. So thank you guys for running. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. I think with the last couple minutes here, I want to give the mic back to you. Let us know what's next for you guys between now and next November. Kendall, we'll start with you.
Next, just one thing to just supplement what you just said. Besides money, there's one other thing that we all need to know, and that is that these gentlemen, clearly I'm biased. I happen to respect both of them greatly, but they haven't got the endorsement of the Republican Party in their districts yet. That's up to us. And the way that we do that is that we run as delegates for Congressional District 3 and Congressional District 5 conventions, so that if we like these gentlemen, we can vote for them to be endorsed. Lacy does have a couple of people that are running against him now for the Republican endorsement in CD5. I'm not really aware if I think Kendall may have scared everybody in 3. But there's still time. People can declare late. And so it's not guaranteed yet. But I did want to put that money is important. Your backing of these individuals straight away is important. But the caucuses are coming up at the end of February. And at that point in time, if you want to be delegates to your conventions, get out to the caucuses, get elected as delegates, and make sure that you support these individuals at those conventions.
Yes. in just a few minutes. First, again, thank you for coming out. I need to stand up. I've been sitting for a while. So here's one thing I'll share as I wrap up. So my opponent and I don't have a lot in common. We don't. But we do have one thing. And you know what, and trust me, I'm not intimidated. There's not a concern. I don't care how much money he has. We're going to win this. Great. But here's the issue I want to make sure you guys understand. We do have one thing in common. You know, his family started in the liquor business. And you know what, we know how successful they've been. But you guess what, my family started in the liquor business as well. My grandfather ran moonshine in South Carolina. And how was that successful? What is that? I gotta tell you how that successful is. Out of that came NASCAR. You know, those guys that ran came NASCAR. And unfortunately, I didn't get a piece of that business. So I had to earn and get my success the old-fashioned way. I had to earn it. And that's how we're going to win against Dean Phillips. My wife and I, we're out here working as if we do have opponents, Republican opponents, and we're not slacking. I'm working out there so he sees everything we're doing, and I want him to sweat all the way to November 3rd next year, because we're going to win it. Okay?
I'm running on an agenda, like I mentioned earlier, of family, education, economics, and spirituality. Families at all income levels, even at the upper income level, because, being a conservative, I don't have anything against rich people. Your money is your money. And you should be using it, the government should be using it as a redistribution of wealth thing. And so everything from, there's a cap on your SALT deduction on your income taxes, where you can only deduct $10,000, and there's a marriage penalty. So for higher income people, we're going to do something about that. For middle income people, we're going to take look at some things in the education areas, for the cost of education and loans and things like that. For lower income people, we're going to push school choice and vouchers and things like that to put competition in the schools and make the school system earn what they're doing. And so that's in the area of families. Economically, we're going to stress for-profit businesses, international, competing on the global level, because what I tell our community, if you ever think you're going to get your just rewards in this country without competing in business and free enterprise, it's not going to happen with government programs. It's not going to happen with nonprofit. All it's going to do is keep you poor and dependent. It's not going to do anything about generational issues and things like that, creating generational wealth. So that's another thing economically. From the standpoint of spirituality, look, what I try to tell people is not necessarily religion, but it's understanding that we're all part of a unit, a whole, whether it's family, whether it's community, whether it's state, whether it's country, and start looking at ourselves like that. And the other thing is, call it religious, moral, or ethical, or whatever, our behavior. We got to stop lying, stealing, killing, cheating, and stuff like that, and start taking care of our family. So those are the type of messages I'm getting out to the community, and this is not easy. I'm not a politician. I'm still learning, but my heart is out here to do the right thing and make a change for people. And I was looking around, and I'm like, nobody else is doing this, nobody else is saying this. And I just remember my mom and dad raised us. If you see something that needs to be done, don't wait on someone else to do it. So I've thrown my hat in the ring here, and I'm counting on all you guys. In fact, when it gets tough, because you can imagine some of my friends wonder, have I totally lost my mind? You're right about Republican. But you know what? It's people like the people in here you run into that comes along with a good word, a word of encouragement, and make you think you're on the right path, and that helps me. So just keep helping me. The money helps, the support helps, a good word here, and of course, everybody got advice for you. Keep the advice coming though, because every one out of 100 advice is a good one that I want to use it. So thank you for supporting me.
Hey, let's get these guys over a round of applause. We couldn't ask for two better guys.